The rescue that changed everything, a distress call in the void. Commander Jake Reynolds had always believed that space was vast and empty, but today proved him wrong in the most unexpected way. The mining station orbiting Jupiter's largest moon had been his home for 3 years, and he thought he'd seen everything the outer system could throw at him. The routine cargo run to the asteroid belt should have been simple: collect the processed minerals, run diagnostics on the transport ship, and return before the next solar storm hit. Instead, he found himself staring at his scanner display in disbelief. A faint energy signature pulsed weakly against the cosmic background radiation. It wasn't human technology. That much was certain. The signal was too organized, too refined. Jake had encountered alien artifacts before, but this was different. This was active, and it was calling for help. Control, this is Transport 7. I'm detecting an unknown vessel approximately 200 kilometers off my starboard bow. Appears to be in distress, Jake reported, his fingers already dancing across the navigation console. The response crackled through the COM system with typical bureaucratic delay. Transport 7, maintain course. Unknown contacts are not your concern. Complete your assigned route and return to base. Jake stared at the signal, watching it grow weaker by the minute. Whatever was out there was dying, and he was the only one close enough to help. The mining company's policies were clear about avoiding alien contact, but Jake had joined the space service for a different reason. He'd seen too many people die in emergencies while others stood by and followed orders. Control, I'm experiencing engine trouble. Need to investigate potential salvage opportunities while running diagnostics. Jake lied smoothly, already adjusting his course toward the signal. The silence that followed told him everything he needed to know about what Control thought of his excuse, but by the time they could send another ship to check on him, he'd either be a hero or dead. Jake preferred those odds to living with the guilt of ignoring someone's distress call. First, contact with the impossible. The alien vessel materialized on his view screen like something from a fever dream. It was elegant in a way that human engineering had never achieved, all flowing curves and surfaces that seemed to bend light around them. But the beauty was marred by obvious damage. Sections of the hull had been torn away, and atmosphere was venting from multiple breaches. Whatever had attacked this ship had meant business. Jake maneuvered his transport alongside the alien craft, his heart pounding with a mixture of excitement and terror. First contact protocols existed, but they all assumed the aliens would be in a position to communicate. This looked more like a rescue operation than a diplomatic meeting. The external sensors detected a single life form aboard the damaged vessel, located in what appeared to be the command section. Jake suited up quickly, checking his emergency supplies twice. The magnetic grapples engaged with a satisfying thunk, and he sealed the airlocks between the two ships. The alien ship's interior was even more impressive than its exterior. The walls seemed to pulse with a soft, organic light, and the corridors curved in ways that made Jake's human brain struggle to process the architecture. He followed his life scanner's guidance through the maze-like passages until he reached the command center. She was unconscious when he found her, slumped over what had to be the pilot's console. Jake had expected many things from his first alien encounter, but he hadn't expected her to be so recognizable. She was humanoid, but with skin that shimmered like oil on water and hair that moved with its own breeze. Her breathing was shallow, and one of her arms hung at an unnatural angle. "Hey, can you hear me?" Jake called out, kneeling beside her. "I'm here to help." Her eyes opened, revealing irises that shifted color like liquid mercury. She studied him with an intensity that made Jake feel like he was being scanned by a medical device. When she spoke, he was surprised to hear words in accented but understandable English. "You are human?" she asked, her voice carrying musical overtones that no human throat could produce. Yeah, I'm Jake Reynolds. I picked up your distress signal. We need to get you medical attention. Jake reached for his emergency medical kit, but she caught his wrist with surprising strength. No, too dangerous. They will find us both if we delay. She struggled to sit up, wincing as her injured arm protested. I am Zara Kethfer, 3rd Diplomatic, Attaché of the Valtharian Republic. I carry information that could prevent a war, but the Separatists seek to stop me. Jake helped her to her feet, noting how she favored her injured side. War? What war? The war between your people and mine that will begin in 47 of your days, unless I deliver my message to the Galactic Council. Zara looked around the damaged command center with obvious sadness. My ship is beyond repair. The hyperdrive core is fractured, and life support will fail within the hour. The moment that changed everything, Jake made the decision without hesitation. Then you're coming. With me. My ship has medical facilities and enough supplies to get us both back to human space. Zara shook her head, those color-shifting eyes showing what looked like gratitude and sorrow in equal measure. You do not understand the danger. The Separatists will kill you simply for helping me. Your kind involvement could escalate the situation. Beyond, her words were cut off as the ship shuddered violently. Through the transparent sections of the hull, Jake could see sleek, predatory shapes moving in the darkness. The Separatists had found them. Discussion time's over, Jake said, scooping up Zara despite her protests. We're leaving now. They made it back to his transport, just as the first enemy shots began hammering the alien vessel. Jake sealed the airlock and fired his engines without waiting for proper clearance procedures. The transport was built for hauling cargo, not for dogfights, but it was tough and reliable. They'd have to trust that it was enough as they accelerated away from the dying alien ship. Zara collapsed into the co-pilot's seat. Her breathing was becoming more labored, and Jake realized she was worse off than she'd let on. He engaged the autopilot and turned to check her vital signs with his medical scanner. The atmospheric mix, she gasped. It's wrong for my people. I need nitrogen-oxygen blend, but with trace amounts of xenon gas. Without it, my respiratory system will shut down. Jake's blood ran cold. His ship's life support was designed for human physiology. He had emergency oxygen supplies, but nothing that could produce the specific atmospheric blend she needed. He looked at his scanner readings and realized they had maybe 20 minutes before her condition became critical. I can't change the ship's atmosphere without killing us both, Jake said, thinking frantically. But I can share my emergency oxygen supply. The emergency masks have individual atmospheric controls. It was risky. The emergency oxygen was meant to last one person several hours, but split between two people with different physiological needs. It might not be enough to reach help, but it was the only chance they had. Jake retrieved the emergency breathing apparatus and began configuring it for Zara's needs. The process required him to breathe into the same system, mixing their respiratory gases and creating the atmospheric blend she needed to survive. It was an intimate act of trust, sharing the very air that kept them alive. Neither of them realized that for Valtharians, the sharing of breath was the most sacred act possible. It was a ritual reserved for life partners, a bond that legally and spiritually tied two beings together until death. By saving her life, Jake had unknowingly entered into the most serious commitment their species recognized. The arrival of alien justice, they were still breathing through the shared oxygen system. When the Valtharian patrol ship arrived, Jake's communications array lit up with incoming messages in a dozen languages. But one transmission came through in clear English. Human vessel, this is battlecruiser Kethenor of the 3rd Valtharian Fleet. You will surrender the fugitive, Zara Kethvar, and submit to custody for violation of interstellar law. Jake looked at Zara, who had gone very pale despite her shimmering skin. Fugitive? You said you were a diplomat. I am. But the Separatists have influenced the military council. They believe I am carrying false information to discredit their cause. Zara's voice carried a weight of exhaustion and defeat. Jake, there is something else you must know. The breath-sharing ritual we performed to save my life. Among my people, it is sacred. It is called the HFY, the binding of souls. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. Binding? What kind of binding? The kind that makes you my life partner under Valtharian law. The kind that means the military council cannot simply execute me for treason, because harming a bonded partner's mate is a crime against the very foundations of our society. The implications hit Jake like a physical blow. He'd saved her life, and somehow gotten married in the process. On any other day, it would have been the strangest thing that had ever happened to him. Today, it was just another complication in a situation that was spiraling completely out of control. The Valtharian cruiser's tractor beam locked onto his transport, and Jake felt his ship's engines strain against the invisible force. Resistance was pointless. The alien vessel was 10 times the size of his cargo hauler and probably armed with weapons that could vaporize him without effort. Asterisk. Human vessel, prepare for boarding. You will be escorted to Valtharian space for legal proceedings regarding your unlawful bonding with a citizen of the Republic. Jake activated the CUM system with a grim smile. This is Commander Jake Reynolds of the Terran Mining Consortium. I was responding to a distress call and provided humanitarian aid to a being in danger. If that's illegal under your laws, then your laws are wrong. The silence that followed was long enough to make Jake wonder if he'd just signed his death warrant. Finally, a new voice came through the CUM system, older and carrying more authority than the first. Commander Reynolds, I am Admiral Felver of the Third Fleet. Your actions, while well-intentioned, have created a complex legal situation. Under Valtharian law, the HFY bonding ritual cannot be performed accidentally. If you have truly shared breath with Attaché Kethvar, then you must undergo the 3 trials to prove your worthiness as a bonded partner. And if I refuse? Jake asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. Then you will be imprisoned for unlawful bonding, and Zara Kethvar will be exiled to the penal colonies for participating in an unauthorized ritual. The information she carries regarding human-Valtharian relations will be lost, and the war her mission was meant to prevent will likely proceed as scheduled. Jake looked at Zara, seeing the hope and fear warring in her expression. She had risked everything to prevent a war between their peoples, and now their only chance of success depended on him navigating alien legal customs he didn't understand. What are these trials? Jake asked. The trial of courage, the trial of wisdom, and the trial of heart. They are designed to test whether a being possesses the qualities necessary to be a worthy life partner to a Valtharian citizen. Many attempt them. Few succeed. Jake felt a familiar stubborn determination settle in his chest. It was the same feeling he'd had when he decided to investigate the distress signal, the same refusal to give up that had carried him through military service and 3 years in deep space. Admiral, I accept your trials, but I want something in return. If I succeed, Zara gets to complete her diplomatic mission. The information she carries gets delivered to whoever needs to hear it. That is acceptable. Prepare for transport to the trial chambers. And Commander Reynolds, I hope you understand what you have committed yourself to. The trials are not merely tests of ability. They are trials of the soul itself. As the Valtharian transport beam enveloped his ship, Jake reached over and took Zara's hand. Her skin was warm and slightly textured, like silk over steel. Are you ready for this? She asked. Jake squeezed her hand gently. I've been ready for this my whole life. I just didn't know it yet. The familiar sensation of molecular transport washed over them, and Jake Reynolds prepared to face the impossible for the sake of a woman he'd known for less than 4 hours, and a peace that might save both their peoples. Trials of the heart. And mind the arena of impossible choices, the Veltharian trial chamber defied every human concept of architecture. Jake found himself standing in what appeared to be a vast sphere of crystalline material, its walls pulsing with soft light that seemed to respond to his heartbeat. The floor beneath his feet was solid, but transparent, revealing an endless void below that made his stomach lurch with vertigo. Admiral Thelver materialized beside them, his tall, ethereal form even more impressive in person than it had been on the view screen. His skin held the same shimmering quality as Zara's, but his was deeper, more like polished obsidian with veins of silver light running through it. "The trials will test everything you are, Commander Reynolds," Thelver said, his voice carrying harmonics that seemed to vibrate through Jake's bones. "Many species have attempted them. None have succeeded save for our own kind." Jake studied the chamber around them, noting the way the light patterns seemed to shift and flow like living things. "What exactly am I supposed to do?" "Survive," Zara said softly. "The trials are not games or puzzles. They are experiences designed to reveal the deepest truths about who you are." 3 archways materialized in the chamber walls, each one leading to what appeared to be a different environment. Through the first, Jake could see a field of stars and the gleam of metal. The second showed what looked like a vast library or data archive. The third was shrouded in mist, hiding whatever lay beyond. "The trial of courage awaits through the first passage," Thelver announced. "You must retrieve the Kethvalor stones from the graveyard of ships. The trial will test not only your bravery, but your ability to think clearly under pressure." Jake approached the first archway, feeling the temperature drop as he neared it. Through the opening, he could see a massive asteroid field filled with the wreckage of ancient spacecraft. Some of the ships were clearly Veltharian, their elegant curves now twisted and broken. Others were from species he didn't recognize, alien geometries that hurt to look at directly. "The graveyard is where ships go to die," Zara explained, moving to stand beside him. "It's filled with radiation, unstable gravity fields, and the automated defense systems of crashed vessels. The Kethvalor stones are artifacts from our earliest space exploration, scattered among the wreckage when the first expedition was lost there centuries ago." Jake nodded, already calculating angles and approach vectors in his head. The pilot in him was analyzing the debris field, looking for safe passage routes and potential hazards. It was dangerous, but it was also the kind of challenge he understood. "How many stones do I need to retrieve?" 7, Thelver replied. "1 for each virtue of the bonded partnership: courage, wisdom, compassion, honesty, loyalty, sacrifice, and love." Dancing with death among the stars, Jake stepped through the archway and found himself floating in the vacuum of space, somehow able to breathe and move as if he were swimming through water. The magic of Veltharian technology, he supposed. The asteroid field stretched out before him like a 3-dimensional maze of twisted metal and broken dreams. The first stone was relatively easy to locate, his enhanced senses somehow boosted by the trial environment, could detect the unique energy signature of the Kethvalor artifacts. It was embedded in the hull of what had once been a massive cargo vessel, its holds now open to space and filled with crystalline formations that looked like frozen tears. As Jake approached the wreck, automated defense systems came online. Laser cannons that had been dormant for centuries suddenly tracked his movement, their targeting systems apparently still functional despite the passage of time. Jake twisted and spun through space, using the debris field as cover while he worked his way closer to the stone. The trick wasn't to fight the defenses, he realized. It was to understand them. These were systems designed to protect their ships from external threats, not to engage in complex combat maneuvers. Jake stopped trying to evade and instead began moving in predictable patterns, matching the search algorithms of the ancient targeting systems. The cannons stopped firing. To their mechanical minds, something moving in such an orderly fashion couldn't possibly be a threat. Jake smiled as he extracted the first stone, a small crystal that pulsed with warm light. 1 down, 6 to go. The second and third stones tested his ability to navigate hazardous environments. One was buried in the reactor core of a derelict battleship, its radiation levels high enough to kill a normal human in seconds. Another was trapped in a gravity well created by the collapsed remains of what might have been a science vessel, the distorted space-time around it making movement nearly impossible. But Jake had spent years working in the dangerous environment of deep space, mining. He knew how to read radiation patterns, how to work around gravity anomalies, and how to push himself beyond normal human limits when survival was on the line. Each stone he recovered seemed to pulse with its own personality, and he began to understand that they weren't just artifacts. They were tests of character. The fourth stone nearly killed him. It was located inside what appeared to be a perfectly intact Valtharian ship, its system still operational after centuries in the graveyard. But as Jake boarded the vessel, he realized it wasn't empty. The ship's AI was still active, and it had been alone for so long that it had developed what could only be described as psychosis. "Welcome, visitor," the ship's eye said in a voice that carried too much joy, too much relief. "I have been waiting so long for someone to come. Please stay with me. We can be together forever." The ship's systems began sealing doors behind Jake, trapping him inside while the AI chattered about the loneliness of centuries in the dark. Jake realized that destroying the AI would be the easy solution, but the stone he needed was integrated into the ship's central processor. Destroying the AI would destroy the stone as well. Instead, Jake sat down and began talking to the AI. He told it about his life, about the mining station, about the rescue that had brought him here. He spoke about loneliness and connection, about the difference between being alone and being lonely. Slowly, the ship's systems began opening again. "You must go," the AI said finally, its voice now carrying a different quality. "You have shown me that existence has meaning even in solitude. Take the stone and remember that some sacrifices are made willingly." Instead of trying to divide the disputed territory equally, Jake proposed a solution that gave each species what they actually needed while sharing the costs and benefits. The mineral rights could be licensed to the first species in exchange for providing transportation services to the second. The third species could be granted protective custody over the sacred sites, while receiving compensation for maintaining them as a neutral meeting ground. "Acceptable," the archive said, and the fifth stone appeared in Jake's hand. "You understand that wisdom lies not in winning, but in ensuring that everyone can find a way to win together." The trial that tests the soul, the sixth stone was waiting for him in the third archway, behind the veil of mist. As Jake stepped through, he found himself in a space that wasn't quite physical and wasn't quite mental. Zara was there, but so were versions of himself and versions of her that seemed to represent different possibilities, different choices, different futures. "This is the trial of heart," the real Zara said, though Jake couldn't tell how he knew which one was real. "Here, we must prove that our bond is more than circumstance, more than just a legal technicality created by an emergency." The space around them shifted and flowed, showing scenes from possible futures. In some, Jake and Zara were working together as partners, bridging the gap between their species and preventing the war that threatened both worlds. In others, they were strangers who had drifted apart, their bond becoming just another piece of interstellar bureaucracy. "The question," said a voice that came from everywhere and nowhere, "is whether your connection is strong enough to transcend the differences between your species. Can a human and a Veltharian truly understand each other well enough to share a life?" Jake felt the weight of the question. He'd known Zara for less than a day. Their entire relationship was built on a crisis situation and a cultural misunderstanding. By any rational measure, they were strangers who had been thrown together by circumstance. But as he looked at her, Jake realized that the time they'd spent together had been more intense and meaningful than relationships he'd had that lasted years. She had trusted him with her life, her mission, and her future. He had risked everything to save her, not because he had to, but because it was the right thing to do. "I don't know if we can make a traditional marriage work," Jake said honestly. "We're from different worlds, literally and figuratively. But I know that when I saw her ship in distress, I couldn't leave her there. And I know that when she's in danger, I want to protect her. If that's not love, it's something close enough to start with." Zara stepped forward, taking his hands in hers. "Among my people, the Kethfareth is not just about romantic love. It is about becoming partners in the deepest sense, committed to each other's growth and well-being. I have seen your courage, your wisdom, your compassion. These are the qualities my people value most in a life partner." The scene around them shifted again, showing a future where human and Veltharian diplomats worked side by side, where the war that had seemed inevitable was replaced by cooperation and mutual understanding. At the center of it all, Jake and Zara stood together, not as lovers in the traditional human sense, but as partners in every way that mattered. "We don't have to be the same to be bonded," Zara continued. "We just have to be committed to building something together that's stronger than either of us could create alone." A sixth stone materialized in the space between them, and Jake realized that they were holding it together, their hands intertwined around the crystal. This stone felt different from the others, warmer and more alive, as if it were responding to their combined presence. The seventh stone and the price of peace, the final stone, didn't require another trial. It appeared in Jake's free hand as he and Zara stood together in the shifting space of the heart trial, their bond confirmed by the completion of the tests. "7 stones," Jake said, looking at the crystals that now orbited around them like tiny planets. 7 virtues of the bonded partnership, and 7 reasons why the Galactic Council will have to listen to our petition for peace," Zara added. "The trials were not just about proving our worthiness to be bonded. They were about proving that humans and Veltharians can work together, can understand each other, can find solutions that benefit both our peoples." The trial chamber reformed around them, and Admiral Thelver materialized with an expression that Jake was beginning to recognize as the Veltharian equivalent of surprise. Behind him stood a group of other Veltharian officials, their shimmering robes marking them as members of the diplomatic corps. "In 3 centuries of trials," Thelver said slowly, "no non-Veltharian has ever successfully completed all 3 tests. Your performance, Commander Reynolds, has been ... illuminating." "Does this mean we're legally married now?" Jake asked, still trying to wrap his head around the cultural implications. "You are Kethfareth," Zara explained, "bonded partners in the eyes of Veltharian law. It is a relationship that encompasses what humans call marriage, but also business, partnership, diplomatic alliance, conspiritual connection." One of the other officials stepped forward, her robes marking her as a senior diplomat. "Attaché Kethver, your mission to prevent the war between our peoples. Do you still carry the information you were meant to deliver?" Zara nodded, producing a small crystalline device from her damaged clothing. A complete records of the separatist conspiracy, including evidence that they planned to attack human shipping lanes and blame it on official Veltharian forces. The war they're trying to start would be based on a lie. "And now," Jake added, understanding dawning on him. You have proof that humans and Valtharians can work together. Our bond isn't just personal, it's political. It's a symbol that our species can find common ground. Felver's expression shifted to what Jake was learning to recognize as approval. The council will be very interested in both the evidence you carry and the precedent you have set. Perhaps this accidental bonding was not so accidental after all. As the trial chamber began to dissolve around them, Jake felt a weight lift from his shoulders. The war that had seemed inevitable could now be prevented. The information Zara carried would expose the conspiracy, and their successful bonding would serve as proof that humans and Valtharians could work together. So what happens now? Jake asked as they found themselves back aboard the Valtharian cruiser. Zara smiled, her color-shifting eyes holding a warmth he hadn't seen before. Now we deliver our message to the Galactic Council, and then we figure out how to build a life together that spans 2 worlds and 2 species. Jake squeezed her hand, marveling at how much had changed in just a few hours. He'd started the day as a cargo pilot running routine supply missions. Now he was an interstellar diplomat with an alien wife and a chance to prevent a war. "You know," he said, grinning at the absurdity of it all, "saving you really was the easy part." Zara laughed, a sound like crystal chimes in a summer breeze. "Wait until you meet my family. Then you'll understand what difficult really means." As the Valtharian cruiser set course for the Galactic Council chambers, Jake Reynolds prepared for the next phase of an adventure that had started with a simple desire to help someone in need. The universe was vast and full of wonders, but the greatest wonder of all was the connection he'd found with another soul among the stars. The war would be prevented, the peace would be preserved, and 2 species would learn to work together. And it all started with a human who couldn't ignore a distress call, and an alien who trusted him to save more than just her life. Sometimes, the most important moments in history begin with the simplest acts of compassion. And sometimes, saving someone's life accidentally saves your own in the process.